Hey everyone! Today we're going to tackle one of the most important and honestly one of the most complicated safety regulations out there, the OSHA's asbestos standard for construction. But don't worry, we're going to skip all the dense legal speak and get right to what you actually need to know. So let's get into it.
So let me ask you something. If you're about to start work on a building that went up before 1981, what invisible threat could be hiding in the walls, the flooring, or the insulation? Well, the answer is asbestos. It's a really nasty material that, when you disturb it, can lead to some very serious long-term health issues. And that's exactly why this OSHA standard exists.
To make this easy to follow, we've broken it down into 5 key areas. We'll kick things off with the danger itself. Then we'll look at how OSHA measures risk, how you can control the hazard, what you need to do to protect your people, and finally we'll cover the absolutely crucial role of communication and good old-fashioned paperwork.
All right, let's jump right into our first section. The hidden danger of asbestos. Because, understanding why this rule is so important is really the first step to getting a handle on what you need to do to comply.
Okay, one of the most important ideas you need to get is something called PAC-M. That stands for Presumed Asbestos-Containing Material. Think of it as a guilty until proven innocent rule. Basically, if you're working in a building from 1980 or earlier, you have to assume that certain materials, especially things like insulation, contain asbestos unless you have a lab test that proves they don't. So now that we know what to look for, how does OSHA actually manage the risk? Well, that brings us to Section 2. They've created a really clear framework that's built on 2 main ideas. First, setting super strict limits on how much asbestos can be floating in the air, and second, sorting all construction work into different risk levels. All right, let's talk numbers. These are the 2 safety limits you have to know. Think of them like a speed limit for asbestos in the air. Over a full workday, a worker can't be exposed to more than 0.1 fibers in a little cube of air about the size of a sugar cube. But for shorter, more intense jobs, there's a 30-minute limit. That one's higher, 1.0 fiber, but you cannot go over it, not even for a minute. Now, to help everyone stay under these limits, OSHA classifies every single type of asbestos job into one of 4 classes. It's a system designed to match the right level of protection to the actual level of risk. You can think of it as a hazard rating system from the most dangerous jobs down to the least.
And here are those 4 classes. Class 1 is the top of the list, the highest risk stuff, like tearing out old pipe insulation. Class 2 is also high risk, but it usually involves materials that are less likely to crumble, like old floor tiles or roofing. Class 3 covers smaller repair jobs, where you might disturb some asbestos. And finally, Class 4 is basically for cleanup, where you're dealing with dust but not actively breaking up asbestos materials.
All right, we understand the risks and how they're classified. So what do you actually do about it? That brings us to Section 3, Controlling the Hazard. This is where the rules get really practical, telling you exactly what you need to do on site to keep those asbestos fibers from getting into the air.
It doesn't matter which class of work you're doing, these 3 rules are non-negotiable. First, you have to use vacuums with special HEPA filters. They're the only ones fine enough to actually trap those tiny asbestos fibers. Second, use water. Wetting materials down is a simple but super effective way to keep dust from going airborne. And third, all waste goes into sealed, leak-proof containers right away.
And just as important as what you should do is what you should never do. OSHA is crystal clear on this. These practices are banned because they just create a huge cloud of dust. You can't use high-speed saws unless they have a special vacuum attached. You can never, ever use compressed air to blast it away. And you absolutely cannot dry sweep it. Oh, and trying to cheat the system by rotating workers in and out of a hot zone? Yeah, that's banned too. This is a big one. For any of the higher risk jobs, that's Class 1, 2, or 3, you have to set up what's called a regulated area. It's basically a quarantine zone. It needs to be clearly marked with warning signs, and access is restricted to keep anyone who doesn't need to be there out. Think of it like a safety bubble around the entire work area. So, we've covered how to control the material itself. But what about protecting the actual people doing the work? Well, that's what our next section is all about, protecting your people. This covers everything from gear to hygiene to medical checkups. Okay, this is a key role. Every single asbestos job site has to have a designated competent person. Now, this isn't just a fancy title. This is a supervisor who's had special training, knows how to spot asbestos hazards, and, this is the most important part, has the full authority to stop the job on the spot and get problems fixed. They're the safety quarterback on site. Of course, you can't talk about safety without talking about PPE, or personal protective equipment. This is mandatory. We're talking disposable coveralls, gloves, and, most importantly, respirators. And the kind of respirator you need isn't a guess. It's determined directly by the class of work being done and how much asbestos is expected to be in the air.
This is absolutely critical. You can't just clock out and go home after an asbestos job. Workers have to go through a very specific decontamination process. It's a 3-stage system. First, an equipment room where you take off all your contaminated gear. Second, a shower to wash off every last fiber. And third, a clean room where you can finally change into your street clothes. This is what prevents workers from taking that hazard home with them.
Now, for workers with more significant exposure, we're talking people doing higher risk work for 30 or more days a year, or anyone exposed above those limits we talked about, the employer has to provide a medical surveillance program. This comes at no cost to the employee and includes things like an initial exam, yearly checkups, and tests to monitor their lung health over the long haul.
Okay, we're almost there. Our final piece of the puzzle is all about communication, and you guessed it, paperwork. Because having all the right procedures is great, but it doesn't mean much if people don't know the risks, and if you don't document what you've done. When it comes to asbestos, safety is a team sport. It's not just on one person. The building owner has to let people know if there's asbestos. The employer doing the work needs to tell their own crew and any other contractors on site. And the general contractor, they have the ultimate responsibility to make sure everybody is playing by the rules. You might want to pay a close attention here, because the record-keeping requirements are no joke. Look at how long you have to keep these things. Exposure data, 30 years. Medical records, for the entire time someone works for you, plus another 30 years. There's a really important reason for this. Asbestos-related diseases can take decades to show up, so these records are vital for protecting people's health down the road.
This quote really just nails it, doesn't it? Giving people the right information is what keeps them safe today, and having the right documentation is how you prove you protected them tomorrow. You absolutely need both.
So there you have it. We've walked through the key pillars of the standard. You have to assess the risk, control the hazard, protect your people, and document everything. We've hopefully untangled this complex rule into a clear set of actions. The only question left is, now that you know the rules, what's your next step to make sure you're in compliance?
If you found this helpful or want to stay updated when this regulation changes, subscribe and support the channel. And if you need the full technical details on this CFR, click the link in the description below. See you next time.